But what I think is more important is this notion of 3 channels, customer-centered omni-channel retailing. And that's what I think we're going to see the winners that emerge from this really play up to. So let me just define what I think those mean. So as we move to digital, it is my belief that that's not the end of the game for retail. It's not that everybody's going to buy online now, but really that retailing is going to be redefined as some kind of omni-channel experience. And that the important part is that the retailing experience is seamless between online, offline. So omni-channel is a seamless integration of online, offline retailing. And that was obviously started before COVID. Most of the sophisticated retailers already knew that was happening. But when COVID struck, if you weren't far enough along on that dimension, you were particularly hard hit during COVID. And now everybody's trying to pivot to get closer on that. The last thing that I think is happening here that COVID is accelerating is this notion of customer-centered omni-channel, and that's the 3rd channel. So that says that we don't only want to see online, offline integrated, but you want to see it through the perspective of the customer. So that means you need an app or sales associate connection or something to see the omni-channel experience from the customer perspective. And that's what I think is the trend now in retailing that you're seeing COVID really accelerate. And it's due to the fact that more people are going online, but to stop at just the digital commerce misses the point. It really is this integration of what retailing means around the clock, 24/7. So if you want to have a 24/7 retailing experience, it's going to have to be customer-centered omni-channel. So I think that's one trend that's been accelerated. The other trend that's obviously been accelerated is this notion of trust. So when you're going into the physical store, like I said, omni-channel implies it's not all about digital. It means also that your physical is going to matter too. But we know and it's going to linger even when we come out of this COVID, I believe, we're going to move from a very high trust experience to more of a low trust experience. But the important word here is trust. And that matters in a way that I don't think it mattered before. I mean, obviously trust was always important, but I think the threshold of what trust means coming out of COVID has again been accelerated. And I can give you one example that's not in retailing, but really made an impression on me. So I heard the CMO of JetBlue speak. Like, I mean, retailing has been hurt obviously by COVID, but you can imagine what airlines are going through. So that's an industry that's even more struck by it. And this was the CMO giving a talk on what she's doing with regard to COVID. And what I thought was really interesting was she said it's unwritten rule in marketing and airlines that you never talk about safety. So you never see marketing about airlines anything to do with whether or not it's safe. But during COVID, the message has to be safety and trust, so that people have to feel that it's safe to go on board an airline. And that idea to me just escalates this notion of what COVID has done, is that you have to have a relationship with the customers to a higher level than you ever had before and really inspire trust. So I would say those things have really been accelerated by COVID. The other thing was, before we went into COVID, when people were still talking about a retail apocalypse, and that just seems so silly to say, what, 2017 was a retail apocalypse? Have you seen 2020? You know, that's like kind of naive at that point. But even then, people were talking about Amazon and quickly following Walmart, the world's biggest retailer, really growing by leaps and bounds. And that's another thing that COVID did. So COVID accelerated their dominance because they were in a better position when COVID hit than most of the retailers, and most of the other retailers have to scramble to catch up. So all of this has made the hurdles of doing business in retail, in my opinion, higher. Not insurmountable, but higher. But that being said, I still think there's ways to compete even in this tougher environment. And what I'm going to show you is the framework that I'm going to present is going to suggest one of these 4 strategies still works. So one, brand. I mean, I've been a marketing professor for over 25 years. Almost every single year of my career, people have predicted the death of brands. And I do not believe in the death of brands. I believe brands are still here. They will always be here. And having the right brand and the right product is a compelling strategy. I also think price. I mean, having the right price and the right value proposition is still very, very important to win. Those are not new ideas, but they haven't gone away. What I think are new ideas is this idea that you can win on customer experience. You can hold constant a fair price and a fair brand, and you can then draw customers by your experience. And I'm going to argue there's 2 prongs to that experience. Either you make it more joyful, more pleasurable, inspire more trust, or you take away the friction. And so I'm going to argue those are the basic strategies, and I'll show you a framework that builds on those ideas. Now, to develop my framework, it's built on the 2 basic principles of marketing. One of the things that I personally like about this, and I think is really compelling, is the simpler it is, the better it is. And I, again, been a marketing professor forever. And there are 2 principles of marketing that I have learned since day one, and I think they still matter. And going back to these principles, really steers the ship in the right direction. And the first principle is the principle of customer value. That's the first principle of marketing. And it says, you've got to give customers what they want. And what do they want in the retail world? They want to buy something they value from someone they trust. It's really simple, but it's amazing how many retailers miss that idea. Buying something they value, that's not a new idea. That is the idea of having the right product, the right brand at the right price. What is a new idea is this idea of buying from someone they trust. And what I think is new here, and what you're seeing a standard in retailing happen at a higher level now, is that you've got to provide this customer experience that's trustworthy and that delivers to a customer's value. The second principle of marketing, just as basic, is you've got to do it better than the competition. And the idea now, there are so many retailers who unfortunately are going out of business because they just did business as usual. They figured what worked in the past is going to work in the future. And if you're not looking at the really cutthroat competitors that are out there and not participating in that, and then all of this has been accelerated and made harder by COVID, you're just not going to win. Doing what you used to do is not good enough. You've got to be better than the competition. These are not new ideas. These are so basic, but they're shockingly easy to forget in the excitement of doing business every day and putting out fires. So those 2 basic principles are what my framework is based on. So I call it the success matrix. And the idea here is to plot. I started this, by the way, I built this matrix in 2017, 2018, the year of the retail apocalypse. And it still holds today in 2020, but what I think is different is that it matters even more. So when you build something on basic principles, they don't change. You just have to redefine them in a new context. So my success matrix is built on, first, the principle of customer value, which is the retail proposition. Give customers a product that they value and give them experience that they trust. So that's the first idea. The second idea is do it better than the competition. And in retail, how do you do it better than the competition? You either make it more fun or more trustworthy, or you take away the pain. And that gives me my 2x2. And these are my success factors. So just to define them quickly, again, brand will always win. You've got the best brand, you got something really interesting, you're still going to win. Examples, and this was in 2017, 2018, but I still argue it's true. Luxury came out of that recession doing really well. Luxury was, and I believe luxury will be back. It's hit a little speed bump, but I think luxury will be back because it's been around for 300 years and it's not going to change. Look at a retailer like Zara, who offered just-in-time product and really gave customers what they wanted. They reinvented customer experience with their model. And the digitally native new brands that are coming, the digitally native vertical brands, they're very small, but they are doing really well and they're disrupting the world. And Warby Parker is an example of that. But I also think you can win on customer experience, which says hold the product constant, but increase the value of the experience around that product. And these examples are interesting in a COVID world because these examples of really successful retailers are high touch, and they are going to have to redefine themselves in the world of COVID. But my favorite example is Sephora. Sephora is a world-class retailer in my mind, and they really reinvented retail because they sold the exact same products that department stores sold. They sold the same cosmetics, the same beauty products, the same brands at the time. They've changed a little since, but when they started, the same product at the same price, and like a magnet, they drew the customers out of the department stores into Sephora. And what was different? What was different was the customer experience. They took their salespeople off commission. They put their product out. They let everybody try whatever they wanted. And they created a playground for customers that really drew them into their stores and away from department stores. And that to me was a real aha experience, an epiphany to recognize the product could be exactly the same, but a compelling customer experience can fundamentally change the landscape. Take away the pain. Always price has been a pain point. And what's interesting about price is the way you lower costs. So all of these retailers are doing well before COVID, after COVID. I mean, look at Burlington. Burlington has no digital commerce. Look at Costco, no curbside delivery. But they are doing something that is still working. They have very, very creative cost models. They're all different in their cost models, but they compete on low price. And then, of course, take away the pain from the customer experience means you really get the data, you know what's happening, you own all the customer experience, buy the data, you analyze that data, and you take away every single pain point, take away all the friction, make it as easy to shop as possible, and nobody does that better than Amazon. So that's the success major. Now, the way it works strategically is, and I do this in retail, and you're all retailers, so I can stay in retail, but I can tell you that this matrix generalizes to other industries. And the reason it does is because it's so basic. So the idea is go back to those basic winning strategies, which I already talked about. They're not surprising. What is a little bit new is this notion of customer experience, but this idea that you can win with any one of these. So what I would argue is you think about this as a matrix or a grid, put the origin in the center and draw axes out in each one of these boxes. In order to not be part of the apocalypse, you have to be good enough in each one of these boxes. So the retailers that are going out of business are not meeting table stakes or fair value in one of these four boxes. And what I would argue has happened with COVID is that COVID has changed customers' expectations in every single one of these quadrants. And the retailers who don't recognize that the business has changed in every one of these quadrants is not going to meet fair value in all four and is going to be in trouble. So just look, we already talked about, the obvious one is frictionless. That's the obvious one. The expectations and what it takes to be frictionless, that has been ratcheted up. I mean, before COVID, you could get things delivered in a few days. In COVID, regardless of whether you're a mom and pop retailer or you're Walmart, you expect the delivery overnight, if not today, within a few hours. The expectations of what it means to be frictionless has been ratcheted up to new heights. Low price because of the economic concerns. The COVID has caused an economic crisis in some sense. You've really got to get your price right. I'm not saying it's necessarily on sale. You have to think through what the right pricing strategy is, but price is a variable that matters to a lot of customers now. Look at the difference in what product is. I mean, what COVID has done is made everybody work from home, totally changed what they want to go and buy. If you don't recognize that people's lives are completely different because they're operating out of their kitchen with their co-workers as their kids, and that says that the product line and the things they want to buy are different, what universe are you living on? They just don't need evening gowns and high heels right now. So you've got to figure out what the product is that's different. So that's changed. And then, of course, this notion of what an in-store experience means, it's got to be trustworthy. It's got to be safe. safe. It's got to be low touch. All of these things have changed. So just to stay in business in COVID times says that you've got to pay attention to the new fair value. But to win, if you want to be a winning strategy, what my work has shown is that you not only have to be good in one of these quadrants, but you've got to leverage that advantage to be good in two quadrants. And that's what I call the 2-quadrant winning strategy. And the reason why that's true in retail is because the competition in retail is fierce. When you've got Amazon and Walmart leading the way, you really have to compete at a new level. And so what the strategy is you be good in 2 quadrants and you be good enough in the other 2 quadrants, recognizing that the other 2 quadrants, whichever 2 you don't pick, the expectations are constantly being ratcheted up. So you kind of have to work all 4 quadrants, but you have to be the best in one, leverage that to be the best in 2. So Amazon, the best in frictionless, and they also leverage that to be the best in low price. And they keep fair value in the product and brands they offer and in their store experiences. Walmart competes head-to-head with a completely different strategy. They are the world's best in operational excellence, bar none. But they were not good enough at frictionless. And they had to leverage their operational excellence to build a frictionless system. And they compete head-to-head with Amazon on a different definition of what frictionless is. They leverage the fact that 90% of the US lives within 10 miles of a Walmart store to offer a frictionless experience that is perhaps easier, amazingly, than Amazon for many customers. And what they've done since COVID is pretty surprising on that kind of stuff. Changing their stores into fulfillment centers, automating their back rooms so that they can deliver on this, doing curbside delivery really, really well. All of that has happened within the last year. They've really turned that around. But those are their 2 strategies. Zara, Warby, they go direct to the end user. They're vertical. So they create amazing product and brands, and they can do it at a lower price because they get rid of the intermediaries. So Zara can give you luxury quality product much cheaper than luxury. Costco, as I said, great price, but nobody matches their store experience. Same thing with TJ Maxx and those kinds of things. They're competing on price, but also with an in-store experience. Luxury, always been a good brand, but now that's not enough. And they either have to figure out a better customer experience. I don't know if any of you followed what Neiman is doing, but Neiman is really trying to figure out a new way to define luxury customer experience that's 24/7. And it leverages the omni-channel experience. It's not okay to just have brand and product. You've got to have that customer experience. Other luxury retailers are looking at how they can maximize the frictionless experience and not partner with Amazon and go to Net-a-Porter or Alibaba or somebody else that's more favorable to brands. But they have to figure out a way to get their brand in a frictionless world. And Sephora, why do they have such amazing stores? Because nobody has a better loyalty program than they do. Their VIB program, their loyalty program, their YouTube channels, they are monitoring their customers, and their customers are fickle. They have 16-year-old high school girls, and to try to figure out what those people want, you need a sophisticated data program, and Sephora has that. So that's kind of what my framework says. Be good enough in all 4, figure out what all 4 means, and then find 2 quadrants where you're going to win and provide the compelling reason for retailers to come into your business. So we're going to talk about thinking about this in terms of your business. And we have a few exercises to, again, get away from my examples and go into your own worlds. And the first thing to do is to think about these quadrants. Within the verticals that you compete in, who you think your competition is, the idea would be to plot where you are and where your competition is in each one of these 4 boxes, and then whether or not you are meeting what customer expectations are. And the first thing to think about it is what's been done before COVID happened. Were you meeting customer expectations before COVID? And how are you doing vis-a-vis your competition on these 4 boxes? That's the first exercise. The second exercise to think about is what has COVID done to customer expectations in your world? And are you meeting those expectations? So I think that's where we are. And then the third part is, what's the strategy? How do you reach that? And Pepe is going to talk a little bit about that later. But Kathy, are we going to move into discussion now? You're on mute.
Kathy, you're on mute.
Kathy, you're still on mute. Can't hear.
There we go.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry.
Hey, Kathy.
Hello. I was going to ask Pepe to make a few comments before we moved into discussion, if that's okay.
Okay, all right, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to work on these 3 grids, but Pepe's now going to talk about it from his perspective. So I'm going to stop sharing, Pepe, and then you'll put your slides up. Is that correct, or do you want me to run them?
Yes, I can put in. There we go. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so something that we have been learning over the past 6 months is the Board of Innovation is an innovation consulting company based in Silicon Valley. They have been researching about low-touch economy and how the different factors that we are living right now, which are all these health measures that are really changing our behavior and creating these behavior shifts in the mind of humans, of companies and customers, right? And this is creating this economic disruption. So all these changes have generated these different shifts in human behavior. And as you can see here, it's incredible that after a couple of months, really all our life changed. And the change in our lives, it's also affecting business. So in a couple of research that they were launched in April and May, Board of Innovation was understanding what has happened with our minds as consumers here in the top, and how these different changes have really affected the different businesses. So depending on where industry we are, there is some industry shift that are affecting. You see here in the vertical axis, the low, medium, and high impact on the economy. And what they call low-touch economy means that people is afraid of interacting. And we're protecting ourselves with masks, and we're trying to have some specific distance and not having so many people in the same place, especially if it is a closed space. And the different cities and companies are having new regulations for that. Of course, consumer behavior has changed, and we take care of each other until the vaccine is out. And of course, there have been some changes in society. Also, we've been using more technology, and we've been trying to accelerate and enable digital technology. So we have opened some digital channels in order to have access to our customers to interact and transact with us. And the uses of technology have been beneficial with some companies, and in others that was already deployed, probably the experience was not the best, and they needed to improve that. What we have learned in Softtek, looking at this and analyzing this, we were working with different customers to understand how has our customer behavior and purchase patterns changed, and what can we learn about that, and what can we do about changing and digitalizing the different channels. On the other hand, probably we already had a buyer persona and we already had customer journeys. And the question here is, have we made that customer journey low touch? So are we making a smooth transition with the customer in order to have contactless or touchless, and probably using more technology in order to have the interaction and be safe? Talking about the business model, are we really leveraging all the different technology in order to digitalize the business model and try to get more savings and probably try to deploy new business models, for example, subscription, in order to grow. And in the case of the different channels, are we able to personalize the omni-channel solution that we have already? And in terms of the backend, also it's very important to have more insights from our data on backend in order to optimize the changes in the supply chain. And also analyzing everything if we need to change our customer value proposition. All these learnings are part of our food for thought in order to really continue moving forward. And learning from what Barbara has recommended on the retailing success matrix, we thought that we can use technology enablers, as we are doing already in this low touch economy, in order to enable the retailing success strategies. For example, in brand, we have different brand marketing enablers from a digital perspective. And maybe it's interesting to look at how is our content management strategy and our content management features. Are we leveraging the content management for different segments? Are we trying to understand the personas and create communities in order to have a more targeted digital marketing? And are we learning from those responses from digital marketing in order to have a data-driven marketing and then personalize? These three enablers are really very, very strong and powerful if we manage them better. If we talk about low price, of course, there is a lot of possibilities on business operations optimization through digitalization. We can use process efficiency tools like business process management. We can use robot process automation. We can manage better our enterprise applications in order to do process mining, and even have a better efficiency in our processes. If we talk about data, of course, operational intelligence is key, but also prescriptive analytics. And maybe add some machine learning and some intelligence and have some cognitive analytics. And in the case of IoT, we can use sensors in order to even improve more the RPAs and have advanced automation for them. And if we go to the customer experience side, the first thing we need to do in order to improve frictionless is simplify the processes. And here is some new understanding on human-centered design in order to have our different processes frictionless, right? And try to be empathetic to our customers and put ourselves in their shoes and try to make everything simpler, friendlier, and fun. And that design, of course, will need an improvement in the digital channels, so the user experience design will come. And of course, if we already improve on business operations, probably is the time in order to get more artificial intelligence automation there. And finally, in order to go to the last quadrant, which is the experiential, we have even more advanced digital technologies like trying to enable the customer journey using this low touch that we've been talking to. If we already have multi-channel or omni-channel, the next step will be to evolve towards personalization. So how can we identify the customer? How can we learn from the interactions? How can we differentiate for them? And finally, how can we remember and then personalize? And if we want even to have better experience, we can use video and voice assistants, where virtual assistants like Alexa, for example, Siri, or all the others. All these 12 different technology enablers, we can apply them to the same examples that Barbara was explaining to us. For example, in the case of Amazon, going from frictionless to low price means working on the human-centered design and video and voice assistants with Alexa, and work more on process efficiency through robot process automation, for example. And if we go on the other sideways, in the case of Walmart, of course, we will work first on process efficiency, probably trying to reduce more cost and have better EBITDA, and then work on frictionless with human-centered design. in the case of the luxury brands, working on data-driven marketing and on digital marketing is key, and then improve with that information the experiential through omnichannel personalization, and even evolving video and voice assistants if we already have chatbots. And in the case of all the others, of course, there is more possibilities to work and improve, working on content management and data-driven marketing, then improving the experience through customer journey and UX design, and continue even working on omnichannel personalization and also artificial intelligence. So there is really a world of possibilities in order to accelerate using technology the 4 different retailing success strategies. And one of our customers is HEB, and with HEB we've been working over time on these strategies. For example, we already have a maturity level from 1 to 5 in order to help define a roadmap that will help us deploy in a very straightforward way the different initiatives. For example, in the case of HEB, we began in 2012 doing some data efficiency in operational intelligence. And then after 6 years, they decided to improve also on processes through RPA. And they called this project the EVA. And they were beginning with the basic functionality from RPAs and also having some self-service for business intelligence. And then we began working with them in the customer journey and using design thinking in order to understand what are the different opportunities for the customers in order to have a frictionless experience for them. And we created a new service called Scan and Go with a mobile app. Now moving through pandemics, we continue evolving data efficiency now to predictive analytics. We continue evolving the usage of robot process automation to more advanced use cases. Now they have 14 different use cases for that. The customer journey, because of COVID, was evolved to a low-touch customer journey. And then we were working on an idea management project, and also COVID made improve the scan and go to pick and collect. And this was COVID-19 inspired. So this is an example of how we can use this roadmap and these different technologies in order to have a simpler roadmap and continue evolving over time using technology towards the retailing success matrix. Hopefully it helps a little bit to understand how we can leverage technology in order to deploy the business strategy.
Thank you, sir. That was excellent. What I'd like to do is start asking some of our retail friends about some of the things that we've been talking about. And I'm particularly interested in what Ron Johnson's doing at Gelson's Market. You know, grocery was on the front lines of this before anybody else was. What are some of the changes that you've been making?
Yeah, I think, you know, for us, it wasn't a financial difficulty. It was quite the opposite, as, you know, speed and tempo of business and revenues expanded and kind of at a speed that no one had anticipated or even thought about. For us, employee and customer safety were sort of priority 1, 2, probably through 10. And that started for us on March 17th as our business went from a small single-digit comp to an over 100% comp overnight, straining literally every piece of the operation. Our shelves were cleared like many grocers across the United States. And we set sort of really priorities on first safety of employee, safety of customer, followed by supply chain and what do we do to get back into business. You know, frankly, it's a testament to the North American supply chain, how quickly restaurant food service supply chain was merged or morphed to retail food supply chain. You know, yes, everybody panicked, and yes, there were lots of empty shelves. There were plenty of calories in the supply chain. Frankly, there were plenty in the grocery supply chain the whole time. Much of it ended up in pantries. And probably some in landfills. But that being said, it was amazing how we were able to work with partners who wouldn't have talked to us about minimums and partial truckloads and multiple deliveries a week from the food service side, that suddenly we're open to anything. So yeah, those are kind of our main focuses. And then, we did have to deal with expanding our workforce very quickly. We are an Instacart partner, so we didn't have to add for our delivery service. But the fact that they were able to add 300,000 shoppers in less than 6 weeks was an incredible feat, and one we are glad to have had our partner deal with, and they did a fantastic job. Grocery, we don't see quite the e-commerce penetration in North America as you would in some of the other pieces of retail, but we did see ours grow by over 400%. It's settled closer to 300%. We think that might be the new baseline, although it's a little hard to read. It does kind of scale up and back. But speaking to those frictionless pieces, we are super duper happy that we had that relationship in place both for home delivery and click and collect. We were also super duper fortunate. You'd love to say it's strategy. We had just launched our first loyalty program in November of the previous year, so 2019. And what an unbelievable opportunity for us to collect and build relationships with customers, many of which were for the first time in our stores. So a little bit of luck, some planning, and it's really turned out to be a positive experience for us. Pan on all this time, we're still worried about employee safety. We have had COVID cases, many. We have had one death in our chain, complications and so forth. But I mean, it's the reality of the space, having folks in store that continue to be the majority of in-store purchases. So we added things like pre-purchase and tent pickup for holiday meals. We launched a Meals to Go program within 6 weeks of the COVID onset. So we tried to be nimble and make sure that we were focusing, whatever assets and talents that we had on the things that would make the biggest difference. So IT guy me, this is the greatest time for business and technology collaboration that I've seen in my career. And I'm an old guy, so I've seen quite a bit. People were willing to move fast. People were willing to make decisions. People were willing to try things that maybe weren't 110% buttoned up. So in terms of being able to move things along, it's been a kind of unheard time and unexperienced thing that I've ever seen. So I hope we can hold on to some of that as well, as I kind of think back over these last few months. So sorry, that's enough for me. Sorry, Kathy.
Excellent. Thank you so much. It's so interesting. I want to turn.
Kathy, sorry to interrupt you. Just one quick question to Ron. Ron, we got a research from Forrester. It's been like 2-3 weeks, and the research was saying that 50+% of the Americans, they don't think that they will go back to store shopping for grocery. The way you describe looks like it's different. People are still trying to go to the store in different ways. How do you see that? You really think that it changed completely, even if we have a vaccine or something? Or you think that we're really down to a new normal where people won't go to store anymore?
Well, nothing's ever always or never. I only believe we add channels. It's kind of like payment types. We still can't get rid of checks in our grocery store. We just add new ones. So I think we will see a double-digit number. I mean, there had been some work done by FMI and others that said, hey, we will get to a 25% penetration for grocery in North America sometime late in the 2020s. Honestly, I think we sped it up some, but not a whole lot. I think people do want to see some foodstuffs, especially in the fresh and prepared side, which is a big part of our business. We sell national brands, but we kind of differentiate ourselves in the marketplace around the fresh offers, high produce meat programs, as well as a lot of prepared foods. So I think almost by definition, there's a desire to go in and see some of those foodstuffs. Selling a box of cornflakes or a can of corn, not so much. We continue to see our center store change slightly in terms of penetration. But our particular offer really is around the efficiency of getting these great fresh offers. And by the way, you can fill your whole basket. And I think above all, that along with our high labor model, which keeps our stores really clean, was kind of the perfect recipe for COVID. Again, we didn't make it that because of COVID, but I think it turned out that the customers rewarded us for being that high service, ultra clean, wide aisle kind of retailer. And we were that before it happened. So we were known for that.
Thank you, sir. I want to ask my friend Karsten Schlim a question, because we've been talking about luxury, and certainly that will have affected David Yurman. So Karsten, do you have any comments?
Yes, thank you, Katie. Yeah, definitely luxury has been impacted. And as Barbara said before, in a situation like this, the last thing that people have on their minds is the next piece of jewelry or the next Hermes scarf. At least so you think. At least so you think. And you immediately learn and realize the quicker you can adapt and identify different ways of getting your product to the customer, which is in the luxury market pretty much still driven on the high touch experience that you get in the store. And the quicker we were able to adapt to our online platform and enabling our fulfillment center to handle the increased amount up to factor 2 to 3 on the demand, all of a sudden, we were able to really compensate a good amount of what we lost on the retail, which we had to close completely for 2 months all across the US, right? So our experience definitely was, there is, I wouldn't call it revenge shopping, but there is the need for not necessarily always low price, but giving yourself something extraordinary in a situation like this. When you see what the online beverage market, for example, the new companies like Drizzly that had come out, and how people invested in products that they never purchased before, simply because now at home they have the opportunity for that, and they wanted to have something that makes them feel good in that situation. So we had definitely struggles, especially in the beginning, adapting our wholesale business, which also shut down, enabling our wholesale partners to be able to sell online, which they were not able to do before, extending our product to our endless aisle into our warehouse for wholesale partners as well, allowing a dropship opportunity from our backstock into an end customer of an external selling partner of ours. These were the challenges that we had to face, that we were able, by adapting digital transformation technologies faster, as just like Ron said before, faster as it usually would have happened. That gave us a big introduction into new ways of connecting with the customer. We had our brand ambassadors who were all at home and couldn't work anymore. We had them pick up the phone and call their key clients and key customers and do one-on-one sales phone calls with them. And it was really interesting how much we could make of it doing so. And we are really happy to say that during the time, the first 3 months, we lost, I would say, 60 to 70% of our revenue. We are right now at the end of the year, less than 15% below last year. And we still have the biggest part to come in the month of December.
That's amazing. Good for you. Thank you so much. I want to ask a different kind of question. So Parvinder Singh is here from Hot Topic. And Parvinder, most of your stores are in malls. So what kinds of adaptations have you had to make?
Well, a lot of things, as everyone is facing, what we are going through, the same thing, right? Curbside pickup, buy online, pick up in store, ship from store. And then specifically, another thing which we are looking into it is, or doing right now, is the queue management, where the consumers are standing in the line, you want to basically interact with them so that, you don't lose them, right? Kind of trying to save the sale wherever is possible, right? So we had to accelerate our omni strategy, which we were talking about from last couple of years. And then everything came together in last 6 months.
Yeah, it seems the speed is really amazing.
Yeah, it's all about right now. I think as Ron mentioned, is that, right? How business partners and how IT partners are working together. You can really see the change in the dynamics, right? We are very agile. We are very, working in the fast-paced manner. And I think, and everyone is ready to take risk, right? Earlier, we wanted to be perfect, right? Right now, we are saying that, what, let's try, experiment. and, go run with it.
That's wonderful. And it's going to help save a lot of companies. Thank you very much. Thanks for being here. I want to ask Amina Yad about what's going on at Academy Sports. Sporting goods have not had a great time of it in the last year or so. What's going on with you guys? And he may not be here.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Kathy, for that. We've really been doing very well. However, and probably it's, some mentioned luck. Luck sometimes plays a role. We've been doing well, and whatever everybody mentioned, it appears that it's impacting the industry, and successful retailers have done them. However, I couldn't help it but to ask a couple of questions to the very great team that you assembled for us today, Kathy. And here's one question. Strategically speaking, when I think about what's going on, especially with the vaccine around the corner, is it wise to strategize around an event that happens once every century? And that's kind of in one hand. In the other hand, when we look at consumer behavior, the predictions for so long has been the internet will take over. But even at the peak right now, according to the data that's recently published by the US authorities, it appears that e-commerce was less than 20% of the total retail sale. And for most organizations, it's still less than that. 10% for some retailers, even when they increase by 300 and 400%, that continues to be 10% of their total sale. So the question is, as we talk about COVID, as we try to strategize, I would try to think about 3 years down the road or 2 years down the road, are we really on the right path strategically? Barbara?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that question, because I feel strongly, I agree with what you said about COVID being a once in a lifetime thing, but I think it's reset expectations. I do not believe that we're going to be 100% digital. I think that's crazy. I absolutely believe it's omni-channel, but I also don't think we'll go back. There are some things that people have just found easier to do online, and they have now become familiar with doing it online, and they're not going to stop. But it doesn't mean that the physical store isn't there. I think what I really, really believe, and I think this is what Walmart and Amazon were doing before COVID anyway, that it's omni-channel. And figuring out what has to be online and what has to be in the physical store, that's the question. And it differs for different retailers who have different advantages and across different industries. And that's why, to me, it's fascinating. And to hear these stories and how different people can succeed is really interesting. The most interesting thing, by the way, that people were saying that was what Instacart did. I mean, Instacart, wow, was that brilliant the way, I mean, they were ahead of Walmart. So it isn't about size. It's about understanding what the customer wants. And what I think is, I mean, people can't wait to put COVID behind them, but COVID has inspired a lot of innovation and a lot of creativity, which is the same thing we saw coming out of 2008, 2009. If you go back to 2008, 2009, you saw amazing creativity. That's when Rent the Runway came out. That's when Real came out. That's when Lyft came out. You saw all different ways of thinking about retail. And that is what I think COVID's going to do. But I don't think it's about digital commerce. I think it's about omni-channel and figuring it out from the customer perspective.
Thank you, Barbara. Makes perfect sense. Now, from a technology perspective, and that will be my last question, Kathy, I promise. We have noticed also some organizations, Walmart in particular, pulling back, for example, robots in their stores. Before that, we've noticed Lowe's that was like at the forefront of utilizing robots. And it also appears that certain technologies has not succeeded. In spite the fact that there was a speed into market, in spite the fact that it's so probably a technology question around How do you see the future of technology, taking into consideration the failure of some technologies at this very critical time in our industry?
That's got to be Pepe.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you, Barbara.
Yes, and the reason we were working with Barbara precisely was in order to understand what are the different technology enablers that can help accelerate the deployment of the retailing success matrix. So these 12 enablers, we position 3 technologies in each of the quadrants in order to really help on one side to assess how you are in, let's say, in the beginning quadrant where you are, and trying to go to the next quadrant, right? Wherever your company is positioned today, you can work on analyzing how is your competitive advantage related to those 3 technology enablers now, and in the quadrant you want to go, what is also your competitive advantage in the next 3 technology enablers, so you can advance over time depending on the maturity level you have technology-wise in each of the quadrants. So at the end of the day, like in the example that we share from HEB, we were working on a roadmap. So you can work depending on how is your maturity level on the beginning quadrant and how do you want to evolve, because normally, let's say, you don't have the same maturity in the 3 technology enablers on one quadrant and the same maturity on the next one, right? So depending on that, you can really develop a roadmap, and we will be very happy to probably have another meeting with you in order to go to further detail and assess technology-wise what you want to do and how can we explore that roadmap for you.
Thank you.
I wanted to add something there, Pepe, and that is most of the times, and this happens probably to all of you guys, you've seen this, a lot of times it's technology for technology. It makes no sense. It needs to come from a need. So it's a very neat thing to have a robot greet you at the store. But have anyone asked if a robot of a person is going to be a better understanding at the beginning when you enter the store? It's going to have a better impact. If you have robots that they're doing inventory at the stores, how efficient they are, but also how do they are perceived to the clients? So a lot of these innovations, I think they come from a lab that they have no connection a lot of times with the operation on a day-to-day basis. And that's why it disconnects. And then you have these great innovations that Barbara was saying, they came really normal in our lives because there was a need that was just right there. And they just connected the need with the technology and not backwards, not trying to innovate just to innovate and have a great new self-service app when maybe that's not what you specifically your clients are going to need. So I just wanted to add that.
And there's one more thing. And back to your original question to Barbara. I think there was a change, and we saw that in the research results, and we saw that in our customers, which is there is a resistance when people were thinking about e-commerce before, right? And that resistance doesn't exist anymore. So it changed. COVID changed our expectations regarding the service. But imagine anybody is buying online, right? Anybody tried at least once. If it wasn't that person, it was the nephew, the niece, the son, the whatever. But everybody tried to buy online. And one of the things that we also saw is that people, the shoppers now, they are really everybody. They are not the geeks anymore, right? So anything we do that is fancy and the whole thing, you have to think, and my grandmother, she's 89, right? And she's buying groceries online. So we had to do an email for her. She's got a credit card right now and she's buying things online. So the experience for her to be online, not the same experience as Carlos to be online, right? And that shift, that is forever. So we may have the vaccine, we may shift back to the physical. We know there is all the enthusiasm of people, all of us, including me, of going outside again. If I need to buy a banana, I'm going to the store. I'm not buying online anymore. But on the other side, it's embedded into our lives now, right? So it's a new behavior. So some of the things, I'm with you that some of the things will revert back, not revert, but we'll go back in a certain way. But there are other behaviors that they are here for good, right? They will, and COVID made that change.
Agreed. So interesting. We're running out of time. Carlos, I want to turn this over to you for the last word.
So yeah, just a quick thank you to Katy and to everyone that assisted. We're really glad. I mean, it was just a quick conversation over here. We had Steven also from Spencer's. We had a lot of people that we wanted to talk to, and you guys, I mean, you're facing the real challenges on the day-to-day basis, and we're trying to be there to support you. If you guys don't know it, we're Softtek, and Softtek is the largest Latin America IT service company. We have over 15,000 professionals working around the world, a lot of them working for Fortune 500 companies. Most of our clients have been with us for almost 30 years in the case of Citibank, or 20 years in the case of Walmart, or 25 years in the case of General Electric. So we're a company that we want to talk to you and try to understand a little bit better of these challenges and position ourselves in a lot of ways that we can help you. But the main thing that I wanted to say is thank you. It's been a long year for everyone, for us too. And I think this sort of communities just connects and gives a little breathe to everyone to say a couple of the things that we're facing and challenging. So hopefully we'll meet again. And that's it, Katy. Again, thank you, Barbara. Amazing as always, Pepe. I can't thank you enough. So thanks, everyone.
You all are amazing. Special thanks to Barbara and the Softtek team. I'll be sending notes out afterwards with everybody's contact information so we can all stay together. Thanks so much, everyone.